Hello, guys. This is the third episode of the Intellectual Experience, and I'm here with Erik. You can probably introduce yourself.
Hello. I am just turned 18 years old, and I'm a triathlete trying to become a professional triathlete. Yeah, so what I do in a week is training, eating, and sleeping. It's basically my life.
Right, and you told me that you're a triathlete, which and you have not um competed, right? Or have you competed now?
Sorry,
Have you competed in a triathlon?
this year?
Yeah,
No,
like
because
ever?
of the corona. Yes, I started triathlon in 2019, so I did 4 triathlons that year. Um, all local triathlons, no big events. But this year, due to Corona, there's haven't been any races this year.
You did four last year,
Indeed, yeah.
and are they because I don't really know what a triathlon is. Like, could you please explain that to me?
Okay, so when when people get asked what is triathlon, they probably would refer to an Ironman, which is brutal. But triathlon is basically a race where you swim and you go directly over to your bike and you have a bike leg and then directly over to a run. So it's basically the three disciplines combined into one race. And there's all sorts of distances. For instance, Ironman, as I mentioned, which is the longest distance. It is 4 kilometer swim almost, and 180-kilometer bike, followed by a full marathon. So it says itself, it's quite brutal. But the distances I compete in and try to compete in is the Olympic distance and sprint distance, which is a lot shorter and only takes 1 to 2 hours, depending on the course.
To complete, like in total?
Yes, all of the three disciplines.
Right, and an Ironman would take typically.
Depends very much on the course and the conditions. But typically the pros finish in just under 8 hours. So it's a long day at work.
Right, and so that's the basics around a triathlon. But
Yes.
you said
So
there's three disciplines like swimming, running, and biking, right?
yep.
Is there any one of them which is easier, like way harder than the other two, or are they all pretty much the same?
Um, it's actually quite interesting because you normally people make jokes about triathlon that we are jacks of three trades, which means we are very good at all of these three disciplines, but not the best. So we just combine them and do all of those three instead of doing one just really really well. But there's also a lot of old people who do this not professionally but for fun, and those people will struggle with the swim because swimming is something that the body is not used to for most people. Because running and walking you do since the start of your life, but swimming most people don't have the coordination to do very well. Um, so for me, starting with triathlon in such a old age, kind of 17 years old, the swim was probably the hardest to get started with because it's a new way of doing sports. Because you have to swim in the water, and the technique is very, very important in doing well.
And you didn't really swim before this, did you?
Sorry.
Did you swim before you began this triathlon?
No, it's actually quite funny because a year before, in I have a swimming friend who is one of the greatest in Norway. He has won Norwegian championship medals, and I've known him for as long as I could remember, and I always said to him that I don't see how he could swim for that much because it's such a boring sport. Until I started with it myself, so it's quite funny. But I think it's very cooling. Yeah, can be boring, but combined with running and cycling, it's actually quite fun.
Right, and that's the thing, like the discipline you think is the hardest one, right? As well.
Um, Not necessarily, but I think the hardest one is the one that I'm weakest at the moment. Which actually is the run. Uh, but I think all of them is just equally as hard, and you have to work hard. Um, but of course, the fact that swimming is such technical, it requires so much more work over time. But I don't think any discipline is harder than another.
And so what order is it in? Is it does it depend on the race, or is like, or is it always swimming first, then running and biking, or like whatever?
Yes, it's always swim, bike, run.
Oh, right, okay,
Uh, but actually, since 2017, there's been a new triathlon league for short court racing, uh, which actually experiments with different sorts of orders and sort of game modes. Then where you will probably like bike, swim, run, and probably do more transitions within one race. Because
right. So
normally
so
there's just one transition in between the swimming and one transition between bike and run.
right, so you can swim two times maybe, or bike
Yeah.
three times, for instance.
For instance, a good example is where you swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run.
Right.
It's
So
very
yeah.
short distances, but it's very intense and brutal. And the hard thing about that is when you're swimming, you're horizontal, which means the blood flow will be different from when you're vertical and running. So when you are running, and because of gravity and physics, the blood will tend to go to your legs, and then you dive into the water and you start swimming, and you have no blood in your arms. It will be quite hard to swim and start swimming again fast. But that's very 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 few races that is like that.
And you're also trying to make it pro, right? That's like your goal.
That's great.
Uh, have you are there any like prize money in what you've been doing, or is it just for fun?
Um, I do it for fun. I do it for experience right now, because coming into the sport quite late, it requires a lot of experience. So I don't do it for money right now. I don't. I don't think I will do it for money anytime because I'll do it for the love of it, and
Right.
the money comes along, I guess. But I have actually won a little prize money for winning my class in one of the triathlons. So but nothing major, just enough to cover the entry fee.
Oh, right. Yeah. So you said that you started late, right? You were 17 when you began
Yep,
this.
yep,
Like,
just
when do
turning
people
17.
usually start?
Oh, that's very very individual, and mostly triathletes start with one discipline, um, either from biking, running, or cycle or swimming, and then they probably find out that they won't be very good at that sport, or they just happen to enjoy triathlon more, and then they go over to triathlon. Um, and a typical starting age is probably about 10, 11, 12 years, and then they come into triathlon when they're 14, 15 or something like that.
And is there any age limit, like to, for instance, Ironman? Like, do you have to be 18 to participate in that, or
Yeah, that's correct, because it's such a long and hard event. You need to have an age limit for safety reasons, of course.
right? So you've never
Uh,
competed in Ironman before.
nope, I've never competed in an Ironman, and I probably won't in many, many years because it doesn't fit with the training plan and the training schedule that I'm doing as a short court athlete.
As a what?
As a short course athlete doing sprint and Olympic distance.
Oh, right, yeah. And like, what does your training program look like?
Um, right now or usually without Corona?
Uh, could you please
Or,
explain like usually, and then how the corona has like changed your plan and why?
sure, 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 sure. So the um uh we train we first of all we need a lot of volume because a race that lasts like 1 hour or 2 hours is pure um, aerobic, which means you are not running at your max. You're running with enough oxygen, and you are competing at a longer duration, which means you need a high volume in training, and therefore I train typically without Corona 17 to 20 hours a week. And the pros will do anywhere from 25 to 30 in a normal week, and probably around 30 and maybe a bit more in training camp. And the um, and because the bike leg is the discipline that takes the longest in a race, because in a pro Olympic distance event that lasts for the pros 2 hours, the swim will take somewhere just under 20 minutes, and the bike leg will be around 1 hour, and the run will be uh, half an hour. So we do most of the training is on the bike. Around 50% of all the training we do is on the bike, and then around 25 and 25 on bike and swim, depending on what your weaknesses are. One of my weaknesses is the swim, so I train a little more swim than run.
Right, and
And
that's usually right.
yes, that's usually. But it depends. It's very individual how much you train in each discipline, depending on what your weaknesses and what your strength. We also do, because I haven't done triathlon for too long, so I haven't been training high volume in many years, and therefore I don't have. I could have done more cycling, but I don't, to get more energy for the run and the swimming sessions, because the running and the swimming sessions are more important to me, as those disciplines are my two weakest disciplines, and those I need to work on. And in Corona, we don't have swimming pools, so therefore, naturally, there will be a lot more swimming and running.
What?
And
Could you repeat that, please?
in Corona,
Yeah.
we don't have swimming pools,
Right.
so naturally there will be more running and cycling,
Right. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
because the hours will drop totally, because you will get more stress on your legs, because running and cycling is just your legs, and you remove the part that stresses your shoulders and arms. So right now I'm on 15 to 16, 17 hours a week, with about 10 to 12 hours on the bike, 3.5 hours on the run, and then the rest, a lot of core exercises to keep the swimming muscles active.
Why didn't you just swim in the sea, pussy? Hmm? Eric,
Sorry, I just got interrupted. What did you say?
why did you start swimming in the sea, pussy?
In the sea?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually tried that last week or something like that with a couple of friends.
Okay.
But it was 11 degrees or something like that, and it is too cold to do any quality swimming in, because you will be too cold in your face and in your arms and at your feet to do any quality swimming. So then it will just be better to stretch on some bands and yeah, kind of swim on land. But when the temperature rise, we will do more swimming. And now we know when the pools will open, so I'm looking forward to that.
And also, did you increase? I mean, you obviously increased the percentage, right, of biking and running. But
Yes.
did you overall increase because now I mean, obviously you have to go to school like online, but I would think I would imagine you have more time now to do what you want.
Yes, that's actually correct. Because we don't have school, we don't have the stress of going to school, traveling to school, and all of those factors. Which means in between the training sessions, I can just lie in my bed and just be in my class and listen and probably do some work, which allows me to recover better, which again allows me to train more and probably harder. So that has actually been something that's positive. Uh, and if we were to go to school and not be swimming, I wouldn't be training as much as I do when I'm home. And also, living like this is actually not as far from being a pro athlete in general, because the life I'm living right now is pretty similar. No school and just rest between all sessions.
I mean, you're probably attending school, right? Like online.
Yes, of course, but it doesn't require 30 minutes bus ride and all of that stuff. I can just, because it's better for recovery to lie in your bed and then sitting in a chair in the school, and overall it's just more relaxing, which allows you to recover more and therefore train more.
So would you say that you've increased the amount of hours you're training a week?
I haven't increased my hours because, as I said, I do now 15 to 17 hours, which is 2-3 hours less than in a usual week.
Right.
Um, because all of the stress is now going to my feet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Before it was more in the arms and shoulders and the feet. But now all the stress from training is on the feet, so I can't do as much training. But obviously, I can do more biking and running. So my cardio, my aerobic fitness stays high. So when I get back in the pool, it won't take too long to get back where I was.
Right. So you've increased the amount of hours you're biking and running, but like in total, it has actually decreased. Correct.
Yes, yes. So in a normal pandemic-free week, I would probably bike 7-8 hours, and now it's 10 to 12.
And do you have any days off, or is it just every day you're working out?
Um, Usually it is every day, but we like to have probably one day completely off every fourth week or something like that. But mostly a a day off or a recovery day consists of very little training, such as a 40-minute jog and some core exercises or something, because it's not really stressing the body too much. And if you're lying in your bed the whole day instead of jogging 30 minutes, you won't get as much blood flow. And because when you go out and train, you have that cycle of training and recovery. But when you're lying in your bed the whole day, it's more like in sleeping mode. So it might actually be better to train on a recovery day than just lying in your bed and do nothing.
Oh, so you basically like active recovery,
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
right? And do you anything like do you do anything like weird? Like, I mean, I like yoga. I mean, I don't think yoga is weird, but that wouldn't strike me as a thing you would do as a triathlete. You know what I mean?
Um, there are some people that do it, but I don't. And the reasons people do it would be to stretch and probably relax your mind. So it's not entirely physical. I do some stretching. I have a program that I do 2 times a week or something, because stretching, increasing your flexibility is quite good in terms of recovery and injury prevention. But yoga, uh, I don't fancy yoga. I think it's better to just do flexibility training.
Right. And what are you eating?
Um, that's actually an interesting question because I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat.
Right.
And the reason I do that is because a little bit because of health related stuff, but actually mostly because of environmental benefits.
Okay.
Um, but I basically eat like a normal person. Just I eat a lot of food, um, because it's important to always have enough. Um, because when you train 2 to 3 times a day, you burn a lot of calories and you need a lot of uh, nutrients to recover to build up your muscles. So therefore, I just try to eat as much as possible, um, and as good as possible, and always after every session. So if I come home from a bike ride or home from a run, I always get some fluids in me because fluids will be taken up quicker than solid meat or solid food. So if I'm driving to an interval session or something like that, I will have uh, chocolate milk in the car so that I can drink it when I get into the car right after a session. Because the first 25 half an hour right after a session is when the body is most absorbent of food and nutrients. So if you can get all the nutrients in you um, as early as possible, the recovery part of training will be a lot better.
And and I mean, I hate to ask you this. I mean, you probably get this a lot, or like not a lot, but sometimes. What's your main source of protein?
Um, I don't have a main source. I have a lot of sources. For instance, beans and lenses, and also milk.
What?
Um,
Could you repeat that, please?
Beans, lenses, and milk for the most part, I believe.
Right. Okay. I didn't quite catch the second thing after beans. You said what?
Lenses.
Uh, I do not know what that is.
I believe it's lenses in English as well. I don't know.
Right, right, right. But you're not a vegan, right? You're just a vegetarian.
No. Yeah, it's quite. I kind of wish to be a vegan, but it's really hard to do, especially when your family is not wanting to be a vegan.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of hard enough to be a vegetarian in a non-vegetarian family, though it works very well. But actually, I'd love to be a vegan, but it's expensive and it requires a lot more focus and attention. Because right now, even as a vegetarian, it's like, what are we gonna have to dinner? And you have to be creative. But it gets better.
Right. And you said you drink chocolate milk, right?
Hmm.
Do you also eat eggs for breakfast, or
No, my breakfast varies, but usually bread, very very what's it called? It's not fine bread. It's uh it's uh, it's usually bread or porridge or muesli and rarely eggs.
right? So
And
it's
in
really carbohydrate dense food.
Yes, it's very carbohydrate. I believe that is very important when you train a lot of train so much that I do, because that's the main nutrient you will use during your training sessions. For instance, we have one hard bike session, two hard run sessions, and 2 to 3 hard swim sessions in a week. That is a lot of hard sessions and a lot of training. And in those sessions, you will burn a lot of um, carbo calories, and therefore you need to fill up your storages.
And how like detailed, like how much do you pay attention to, like how much fat you're getting, how much carbs, how much protein?
I actually don't pay attention to that. I eat as normal as possible, and I do enjoy myself some sweets or chips at Friday, um, just for the moral, because it can be pretty tough to only eat super good things. Um, but no, I don't count anything. I don't measure anything. I know I get enough of what I'm eating. And the only substance I'm taking is actually um, calcium, vitamin D, and K. And that is has to do with an injury I've had for a long time.
And what injury is that?
It is fracture or stress reaction, which actually got me into the sport of triathlon.
Could you please elaborate on that?
Of course, it is a stress reaction is what's coming before a stress fracture, and we all know what a fracture is, and most people probably get it from an accident, for instance, jumping on a trampoline or something. You fracture your but a stress fracture is a fracture that occurs because of too much stress in training over time. So I got it in a bone called tibia, which is um, one of the bones in my lower leg, and that has to do with too much running. Um, because every time you run, small parts of your bone will break apart, and between run sessions, you recover and the bone repairs itself. But if you run so much that the body doesn't have time to repair itself between sessions. You will just break the bone more and more and more until it fractures. So what I got was a stress reaction, which is a reaction before an actual fracture in the. Because if you have an actual stress fracture, you will be on crutches for some weeks, and the recovery takes months.
So you were kind of lucky.
Kind of lucky, and it has to do with awareness because you can feel it when you run, and when you feel pain that doesn't get better or doesn't disappear during a run, or even worse after you've run, when you're lying in your bed and you're still having pain, that is very alerting and not a good sign. So therefore, I went straight to the physio and got help. But I've actually struggled with a stress reaction related injury for a very, very long time.
I think I got the same thing in my toe because from football,
Yeah.
but that I was just out for like a couple of weeks
It
and then I was fine.
yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because if you do an X-ray on it, it won't show because it's so small and it's covered in so many yeah, it won't show because it's so small, so you'll have to take an MR
Hmm.
to the um, look at the hva er vev på engelsk?
What? Oh, tissue?
Tissue, yeah, the tissue around the bone, because it will start to get uh, um, yeah, it will show on an MR, but the problem is MR costs a lot of money, um, and if you want to get an accurate result pretty fast, you'll have to pay all of it yourself. And in Norway, it costs about 3,000 kroners, which is probably about $300.
Yes,
So it's quite
exactly.
expensive.
Right. Yeah. And you also said that that was one of the reasons that got you into triathlon.
Yes, because I got the first time I got this injury, I was an orienteering runner. And at that time, I was basically just running and therefore got this injury. And to recover, I did a lot of aqua running, which is basically running in water. You have a belt around your waist and you're floating in the water, and then you just do the running motion. It's the best running related training without actually running. So I did a lot of that, and I did it at my local pool at my school and at the same place. Um, some of the best triathletes in the world are training. The best from Norway, Christian Blommenfelt, Gustav Iden, and Kasper Stornes. Uh, and also a family friend of us was talking about a local triathlon, and I thought, that would be cool to try. So one day after I was aqua jogging, I thought I might try to just swim the distance to see if I could do it. And I did, because it's very easy to do. But then I thought this is very slow, so can I do it fast? And then it just built on that. And I started biking, bought a bike, and eventually faded away from orienteering and started doing triathlon because I could do so much more training, even though I was injured in triathlon than when orienteering. Because when I did orienteering, I was running about 10 hours a week, and I got injured. But in triathlon, I can train up to 20 hours a week, and if I get injured, I can still train 15 hours or something. So, so yeah,
So
it
would you say
was
that injury was a blessing in disguise?
indeed, yeah, you could say, I guess you could say that.
And That's actually like I just remember when I met you, like your whole thing was orienteering. Like that was your thing. Uh,
Yeah,
so 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 you competed a lot in that, right? You were like in
yep,
the Norwegian championships and stuff.
yep.
And could you please, I've always just seen people do that, running with like a map or something and just,
Yeah.
clipping, like do those clipping things and just run to the next post. And I've always just thought that you're you're a bunch of idiots. Like, what are you doing just like running in the woods, like, getting these posts?
Yeah, it's actually quite funny too because when you ask people if they know what it is, most people don't, because it might occur to them that it's a bit strange. But actually, I do believe it's one of the coolest sports in the world that you can do. And it's basically a race. You have to get fastest from A to B, like in any other race. Um,
But
and
is it really A to B?
on the
Isn't it like
start,
A to B to C to D to E to F to G?
yeah, I'm coming to that. um, so when you start, you can start in a mass start, you can start in individual start, and when you start, you get a map that you haven't seen before, and on that map, you have a lot of controls that you have to go to in order, and you have to complete that course in the fastest time and punch the controls in the correct order and all of that. So it is very challenging, and it doesn't solely depend on your running capabilities. It also requires a lot of focus and technique and a lot of brain. It's like running with brain.
So it's like a running puzzle.
Indeed, yeah.
And you said technique. Like what technique? What technique is this? Like running to a post.
um, it is the orienteering technique, we call it. It is basically the way the way you find your way to the control. Because um, from a control to control, we call it a leg, and a leg can be anywhere from 100 meters to several kilometers, which is actually quite a long distance. And that's in air distance. And you have to find the shortest way, or the fastest way, rather, the fastest way. And when you have to find the fastest way for maybe 20 to 30 controls during a race while running in the woods outside paths, so in very odd terrain, it's quite difficult, and it requires a lot of experience and technique to first of all find the right route choices, find out where you want to run, but also actually execute the plan you had in mind. And no one will ever run a perfect race where you do all the best route choices and all the best executions. That is just impossible. So that makes it more exciting, I guess you can say, than normal running, where you can kind of guess who will win from the start, because you have that extra technical element that can change the race.
Right. So a route you pick can make or break your whole race.
Yep, and
And what? Go on,
it's
please.
actually quite interesting because as in any sport, there is different distances for every race, like short course, middle course, and long course. And for instance, in a long course that lasts for 2 hours, it's actually quite interesting to see the winner margin being so close. like in a 2-hour race, the winner can win with less than a minute, and it's very interesting to see when you look at the map and look at all the possible route choices and all the possible time losses and time gains.
And is this one of those sports where you can start really late and just become the best, or is this like a really like thing you have to work on a lot?
Um, um, well, of course, you will have an advantage with a talent, and you also have to have a sharp brain. Um, on the Norwegian national orienteering team, which is one of the best or national teams in the world. Everyone except one has a higher degree study.
What? What does that
Um,
mean?
no, a higher degree from university or something.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I got you.
Um, so that's quite interesting actually. So you kind of need to be like the best tend to be smart at school and stuff like that as well. But you can also train a lot, and orienteers will run very many sessions on a map in just training with a map. So you can definitely train to become the best, but you can also have a lot of benefits with talent and stuff.
Right. So let's say. I mean, when do you think is like the prime age? Is that like 28, 29, or is before or after? Like, what is the prime?
Um, in orienteering, that's actually quite hard to say. I would say the prime age would be the late 20s and 30, because in long distance, at least, because then you have many years of experience in running at maps, and also a pretty good diesel motor, so you can run for a long time. Um, But interestingly enough, last year the silver in the World Championship in long course orienteering was taken by a 19 years old, which is a huge talent and a very good race by him. But I do believe you need a lot of years of experience to be among the best.
you, you know, when we were talking about technique a couple of a couple of minutes ago, I was just
Yeah.
totally convinced that you're just gonna say that. Oh, you gotta clip the map in the right way.
Well, yeah, that's also technique. It it's not as important, but you also have the element of being able to run in the woods. Because if you were to follow the world best orienteers, you wouldn't last more than 5 seconds, I'm sure. Because first of all, they're running at insane speed, but the terrain they're running in, um, it's just incredible to look at them run at that speed in terrain. Because it could be mossy, it could be wet, it could be a lot of trees and all of that, but they just uh, powering through the woods, and they will almost guaranteed have some scratches with blood after a race. So that's pretty badass.
And did you have that when you were running? Did you
Hmm?
come home? Did you come home after a race and show your mom and dad your battle scars? Oh, sorry.
um, yeah, it's a popular meme among the orienteering guys that you're an orienteer when you're proud of your scars. And I
Right.
definitely have a lot of scars still on my arms from my orienteering days.
I just dropped my bottle. I'm so sorry. Right. And so you, I mean, you obviously discovered triathlon when you were injured, and
Mhm.
did you switch? I mean, you probably said this. You probably said this when you were explaining it to me, but I might have forgotten. But do you think that it was so much better that it was worth switching? Like it was worth that, you didn't swim previously. So so why did you think that triathlon was just so
Um,
much better that you would want to buy a bike and start swimming?
that's actually a very good question because when you have done orienteering, I at that time I had done orienteering for 4 years, and I was getting into the orienteering environment and people, and knowing a lot of people from all over the country, having a good group training with here where I live. So switching to another sport where you basically don't know anyone or know very little about, it's a tough decision, which I'm very glad I did made. Um,
Yeah, because you're really
but I
starting from
think
scratch, right?
yes, yes, and it the reason I did it was probably because I saw. First of all, I just thought the sport was very, very cool. Um, and you also got to do a lot of training because I hated the fact that I did less than 10 hours a week running orienteering and getting injured. So the fact that you could swim and bike, which is two sports that you can do a lot of without getting injured, and run at the same time, I thought that was fantastic. And also the fact that I was able to train so close to the world's best, and also that some people from Norway were among the best in the world, so I knew it was possible for a Norwegian guy to become one of the world's best, and also triathlon is an Olympic sport. It's much more popular on a world international basis than orienteering. So the chances of becoming a pro and living off orienteering is a lot higher than no living off triathlon is a lot higher than living off doing orienteering,
So
because
so
there's basically
so you did it for the money.
no but
I'm just
that
joking.
the fact that is the fact that it is much bigger international
Yeah.
is a factor, because when you win the world championship in orienteering, you don't win any money. But when you win in in um, in triathlon, you win quite a good amount, and that just means that the chances of becoming a pro athlete and uh, living off triathlon is a lot higher than living off orienteering. And I want to become a professional athlete and live off the sport I'm doing, and therefore triathlon was better than orienteering. And I'm very glad I actually was brave enough to do the decision to start triathlon, because it was very uncomfortable to leave something that is very known and start with something that you don't know anyone and you don't know anything.
And you're pretty good at orienteering, right? Like you're in the national championships.
Um, well, the national championship has no qualification, so that alone doesn't say anything. But
Oh, right, okay.
uh,
But like, how good were you?
but
Like, were you like top 10 in the nation, or were you like really bad, bad?
my my best placement in a national event, like a national championship event, was 15th place.
Out of
Um,
15, or
so Now I was out of probably 60 to 80 people or
Oh,
something.
right. So
Um,
so you weren't completely horrible.
Not completely horrible, no. But my strength has always been the reading map part because my running capabilities hasn't been the best because I've always struggled with um, with injuries and stuff. So I haven't been able to sustain um, a weekly volume of training over a long time, which is required to do well in anything.
So so you know you wouldn't change like you don't regret it at all.
No, I'm super duper super duper happy I made the choice actually.
And you said that triathlon is a bit bigger, right? It is an Olympic sport.
Mm. In
Like,
Norway, orienteering is bigger, but worldwide triathlon is a lot bigger.
right. And like how do you fancy your chances at like going pro? Like do you honestly like in your heart like do you think that you'll be able to make it or like what
Um,
do you think like mentally?
well, obviously, I'm putting all this work, so I must believe I can do it. But the things that is kind of making me think twice is the fact that I started very late. And the people at my age are a lot better than me in triathlon, obviously, because they've done it for a lot more years than me. Um, but I'm still young. If you, I'm still young relative to a lot of the pros. So I believe that in I don't know how many years it will take, but it will take probably 8 years till I'm at my maximum potential. But I think if I can become one of the world's best in 8 years, I think it's still worth it, and I believe I can do it.
And what does a career in triathlon look like? Like you compete obviously in tournaments and maybe like for your country, right? But what
Mm.
do you do after your prime? Like when you're like 35 versus like 40? Like what are you doing? Are you
Mm,
just do you just retire or do you become a coach or something? Like what do you do after?
um, I can tell you a typical career in triathlon, which is very normal actually. It is when you're and it is actually pretty normal in running too. It is going longer distances as older you get, because when you're younger you have more speed, so you would do better in short courses, because they require more speed, like in a sprint finish or a 1K battle or something like that. So as you grow older, you move up distances to longer distance. So most of the pro Ironman athletes have been short course racers before racing Olympic distance. And it's the same with Eliud Kipchoge, the world best marathon runner. He was 1500, 5000 meter runner before and moved up distances as older he got because running 1500 meter and 5000 meter requires more speed, which you lose as you grow older. And the oldest pro triathlete competing in Ironman is uh, around 40. So the triathlon career can last a lot of years. And my ultimate goal is to be a triathlon until I can't anymore, till I can't compete anymore. and after that be a coach or something like that. That would actually be be my dream.
So, do you have a coach right now, or are you just doing everything yourself?
I recently, or relatively recently, got a coach and got into a triathlon club, which I believe is very important and 100% necessary. Because the first complete year with triathlon, I did everything by myself. And I have to say, I did a lot of right things and did a very good job. Uh, but in order to maximize the potential of development, I believe you need a trainer, and my trainer is has good connections with everyone in the triathlon Norway team. So he talks to the same trainer that trains the world's best triathletes from Norway. So we get a lot of valuable information from there, and we do very good training. Um, so yeah, and also as I said earlier, we do have very many or a lot of hard sessions in a week, like one on the bike, two on the run, and or three in the pool. So in order to get through all of those sessions and doing the work that is required, it is a lot easier to do in a group where you can, for instance, if I'm having a bad day mentally or something like that, my friends can push me and help me complete the session. And maybe when they are feeling down, I can do the same for them. And also, it just makes it more fun to come to training and have something to talk to. Because when I did the first year of the triathlon, I did 700 hours of training in a year, and every single hour of training was by myself. And now maybe just 70 or 80, which is a lot, is by myself. So I think it's very necessary to be in a group and have someone to train with.
And when you're training, are you always like are you always increasing the length?
From week to
If
week.
if that makes sense, yeah, from like week to week or month to month
Um,
or even year to year. Like, is it always the same? Like, have you just reached? I mean, I I think that you increase it. Obviously, like that would make the most sense to me, right?
mhm.
But like, how aggressively, like, even like, do you increase your like how long you bike or like how long you swim or like how long you run
um,
in training?
so obviously you want to train enough, and for the pros, enough is between 25 and 30 hours a week. And so you want to get up there, and I'm not up there yet, so obviously I need to increase over. Um, but the we increase very slowly
Like the
because
distance or the time or like both.
uh, both, but we mainly focus on time, and the distance will kind of come with time, um, because you will get faster, hopefully, if you're doing things right. Um, but for juniors like me, um, we don't focus too much on the bike because it has the two most important things in junior races, like in World Junior Championships and Europe Cup and those, for juniors. In those races, the running and the swimming is the most important, because you need to be in the front pack when you're swimming. You need to come out in the lead, with the front pack, because when you're on the bike, if you're not with the front pack, you won't get the drafting. So it would be a lot harder to cycle alone than in a field.
Like you what? The drafting?
Yep. So
What
you
is?
know what drafting is?
No, I have no clue.
um, so when you're behind another rider, when you're riding your bike, you don't. The rider in front of you will push the air away.
Oh
So
right,
it will
yeah,
be a, yeah, that's drafting.
yeah, right. Okay, I got you.
So if you're in the front pack of the swim, you will be able to stay in a field of a lot of riders. And if you are, let's say, 20-second backs of the swim, you'll have to catch up, which requires a lot of more energy. And if you're in the front pack, you can like cruise. It's not cruising, it's very hard, but then take it out on the run. So that's why running and swimming is the most important for juniors, and therefore those are the two main focuses um, for us juniors, and especially me. So I try to increase those two. I was about 7 and 8 hours swimming a week before Corona, which is good. Um, and actually, I wouldn't increase the time too much. Probably about 8 or 9 hours would be the optimal. But rather increase the distance and the length of the session in meters. And in running, I am doing now very little um, compared to what I probably should be doing, and that has to do with the comeback of the injury, or yeah, from a stress reaction injury. So I'm about three and a half hours of running a week right now, which is about 40 to 50 kilometers, which would be ideal maybe in a normal week. But right now, without swimming, I would probably be better off running 4 to 5 hours. But we increase the overall volume very slowly over time. And as Gustav Iden once said a couple of months ago, for them, the problem isn't to train more, it's actually to train less and better, because they are already doing so much training the body can take. So if they train more, it wouldn't be beneficial. So they have to train better, not more.
And you said that you're obviously not training as much or like many hours as the pros.
Mm-hmm.
And could you please just like elaborate on why that is? And like is it because like your body can't handle that, or you don't have time because of school, or like what? Like
Um,
why don't you train as much as the pros?
as you say, it's mostly because of the body isn't used to so much training. The pros have been training. Let's take, for instance, Christian Blumenfeld. He's training probably more than 1,200 hours in a year, but he has been training like an animal since, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. So his body is used to training uh, so many hours in a week, but I am not. So over time, I need to get used to training more and building the ability to and building the ability to actually handle all the training.
And you said that you're obviously running a lot, you're swimming, and you're biking. But are you also like doing weight training or
Um, very little, and the in a normal week, the only core workouts I will do is before swim, because before the hard session in swimming session. We have so that will be 2 times a week. We have a 30-minute core workout. So that's all. I don't do weight training, no, because you get a lot of strength training in the training itself. Like the leg muscles gets enough strength training from riding your bike, and the only thing you really need to train outside the usual training stuff is core exercises, and probably some stability or special exercises if you have a injury uh,
Could you
or
please
something in the
repeat that?
uh, the most important thing is just to train core outside usual training. But for some people like me, it can be nice to have special training, stability training, and injury prevention training for instance, my foot or shoulder and stuff like that. But we don't squat, we don't bench press or something like that. That's just waste of time and waste of energy.
And and so you've obviously been doing this for how many years now? Like 1 or 2?
Triathlon I've been doing for 15 months,
Right. Okay. So
so it's
you're
not too
fairly
long.
new.
I'm fairly new, yeah.
Uh, in those 15 months, has there been anything that you didn't expect? Like, I mean, in terms of training, like, like this muscle has been worked on way more than I thought, or something along those lines.
Mm, well, first of all, you will obviously see a little transformation in how your body looks, because when you're a runner, you don't have muscles in your upper body. So that was probably the major difference, probably. Um, Starting to use upper body muscles and getting strong in your upper body. But other than that, I was used to running. Cycling is not too too hard to get into. So, but sure, there has been a lot of things that I didn't expect, and so much to learn. Um, and it's been just 15 years. It's been a quite a journey already.
50,
So I'm
15
looking
months, right?
15 months. Yeah, sorry. It's been quite a journey already. So I'm only looking forward to more.
And you also said that you bought a new bike, correct?
Well, not a new bike,
Yeah, but like you bought a
because
bike.
I bought a
Could you please repeat that? The Wi-Fi got
yes,
cut off.
I bought a bike.
Okay, right, yeah.
I bought a used bike.
And it's when you're competing, you're using your own bike, correct?
Mm.
So would you say that there is an element of pay to win in triathleting or like in triathlon?
Definitely yes. So, or kind of. Um, One of the probably biggest changes in going over to triathlon is that you have a lot of new gear, like a lot of new gear. Because you need swim goggles, you need a wetsuit, you need a bike, you need spare parts for your bike, you need cleaning things for your bike, you need so much things and so much expenses. Um, and as you mentioned, the equipment plays a big role in performance. Like the wetsuit I have is probably about $300, but the top models are $1,000. And the bike I have, new, would be $2,500, but the top bikes can be up to $10,000. And even though the gains are very small, they are still there. But at my level, I don't see the point of uh, of focusing too much on the gear, because if I go a couple of seconds faster on the bike in a local race, it doesn't really matter, does it? It would have mattered in a world championship or in a World Series race, but in a local race, it doesn't even matter. So for now, I'm just focusing on becoming the best rider, and then later I can start focusing a little bit more in getting the best gear I need to compete. But it's actually quite funny, because in local races you have all of these non-professionals with all this super gear, like bike that is uh, worth up to $10,000, and they obviously aren't athletes themselves. So when coming with a rather cheap bike, it's so funny to just pedal
Past them.
past them. Yeah.
Like
Like,
taking a dump on their face.
exactly. Yeah. In my last race, actually, because the last race I did was um, non-drafting, so you can't stay on the wheel, so you have to
What?
uh, ride your bike alone.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
You can't draft.
Right. Okay.
Um, so all of these non-pros would turn up with their time trial bikes, which is expensive bikes, and and as I said earlier, non-pros are usually very bad at swimming. So I would come up of the water in front of most of them, and some of them would bike past me. But then there was an uphill, and I just flew past them, and it was so fun.
Right. Right. So, so like, okay, I want to take up two more things about this, right? So,
Hmm.
like, to just say that the equipment, like, okay, so let's say it's me and an identical clone of me, right?
Hmm.
So basically just two chimps. And then you give me like this really good gear, right?
Yep.
And then you give the other chimp a, like, average, or like fairly, like,
Yeah, a
cheap.
budget.
Like how much of a, like, would I clearly win, or would it just be like a couple seconds?
Well, it all depends on condition, course length, and all of that. And the equipment is most significant on the bike leg, because the aerodynamics are very important when you're going in such high speed as you're doing when you're cycling. Um, and if I were to bike with a lot of the cheapest gear and compete against someone at the same level with the proest gear, they would with quite the margin, because of I will have to, let's say, in cycling we measure how hard we pedal in watts. I don't know if you heard that.
Right.
Uh, it's basically a measure of how much power you're putting in the pedals.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's say if I'm putting 300 watts during a race, and someone with better gear um, would probably have to push 280 watts to maintain the same speed as me.
Okay. Yeah.
And 20 watts for 2 hours, that has a lot of difference. So the longer the distance, the more the more the gear has to say, and um, and it could save you either watts, so so the effort is easier, or it could gain speed, so you would go faster. And if you are riding for 4 hours, as you would in an Ironman, if you had to do 20 watts more because of your suit is flapping in the wind, you would be done on the run. You wouldn't be able to compete at all because the effort is so much harder than what your opponents. So the equipment will have a lot to say. Yes.
Right, and it as you said in Ironman, it is way more significant when it's a bigger race, like a longer race.
Mm,
Correct.
yep.
And could you
So let's
please repeat? Yeah, please go on. I can just ask later.
so if the course is if the course takes if the course is 100 kilometers and you're going one guy is going 40 kilometers an hour and the other guy is going 41, you will start to gain a lot of time.
Right.
So yeah, equipment is unfortunately quite expensive, but it is what it is. It's a part of the game.
And could you please repeat how much money like your
Hmm?
things cost? Like you said, your wetsuit is like $300, correct?
It's $300. Yeah,
Yeah, and you said your bike was 250.
bike was $2,500 new, but I bought it way more cheaper.
What? Wait. 2,500 bucks for a bike.
900. I bought it for 900, but
Dude,
new.
dude,
Ca-
dude. Oh, like I don't own a thing that's like I don't own a single thing that's worth more than 5,000
you
krona.
already think you think that's much?
Dude, to me that's a lot. I think football cleats or like boots that I
Yeah,
used were really expensive, and those were like $250. And you're telling me that a bike is like 2,500?
yeah, that's new,
Right. Okay.
and that's considered a cheap bike.
So that's a cheap bike. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
a typical a typical bike would probably be anywhere from 40 to $80,000. No, 4 to 8 thousand dollars.
All
Sorry.
right. Yeah. If he was at 40 to 80,000 bucks, I would have just like gone to Joe's house and slapped you in the face.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a really nice car.
Yeah.
And and so what are you getting for a more expensive bike? Is it lighter and has like better
Um,
aerodynamics?
yeah, the it has better aerodynamics, of course, um, and also better um, group set.
What the hell is a
So
group set?
I'm more expensive. Yeah, that means like the chain ring and the gears and the brake, they will like the top of the game will be electrical, so the gears don't have wires because the wire will catch in the wind and create more air resistance. so
Okay.
so in an expensive bike, everything is thought about, and yeah, everything should be aero and as light as possible,
And is what?
and the material and everything just is so expensive.
Wait, so it's lighter and skinnier, right? Essentially.
Hmm?
So it basically like becomes skinnier and lighter, correct?
Yep,
So you're essentially paying a lot more for a lot less.
kind of, yes. But
Okay.
those those gains will be very important in a championship, for example.
And are you
But
seeing yourself
for
getting new gear?
amateurs and non-pro athletes, it's just like it's because you can and because it looks cool, I guess.
Right, and are you seeing yourself getting a new bike anytime soon?
Not anytime soon, because if I'm doing 300 watts on my bike or on a pro bike, I would still get the same training effect. So I'm just trying to be the best rider, and then when I'm ready to compete at the top level, I'll probably invest in a good.
And would it be beneficial to train with a slightly worse bike?
No, because if you have a good bike or a bad bike, you would still have to put the same amount. You would still have to put power to the pedals, and then it doesn't matter if it's a super slow or super fast bike or anything, because you will still have to do the work.
Right, and I was just thinking like as a stupid idiot that knows nothing because I don't know it just sounds better to train with a weight vest on, right? To run with waist tied around your
Yeah,
shoulders and then take that off and you're like wow, like I'm far better now, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, I can see what you mean, but
Yeah, but so that's not the
no, that's
case.
not necessary.
Right.
No.
Dude, $250 for a bike. And you also said previously that the pros train more in boot camps, right?
Yep.
Uh, I mean, have you gone in or like on boot camps? And like, why do they train more then and not just all the time?
Mm, in triathlon, I've done non-training camps, but I did um, 2 training camps each year while I was running orienteering. And for for a pro athlete, a training camp wouldn't be too much of a difference in terms of what you're doing there and what you're doing at home, um, because you basically train, eat, and sleep. But for me, as a student and goes to school, a training camp is very different from a regular week because it's no, you don't have to go to school. You just train, sleep, and eat, essentially. So naturally, the total stress in your body would be less when you're on a training camp for a student, which allows us to train more. Um, and for pro athletes, um, the the amount of training you can do is, or you can do like the same amount of training, probably a bit more because you're more focused on training. The main reason to go on training camps as a is because of um, better conditions, warmer weather, and also altitude.
Right. So do, do you do so? Could you please explain altitude training for me, please? Because I've heard something about that. Like oh, if you train high up, like it's better somehow. But I don't fully understand like why that is or anything.
Um, Altitude training is based essentially training at very high altitude where the oxygen density is lower, so you will get less oxygen in your body, which means that the the amount of red blood cells will increase um, in order to get more oxygen to your cells, because oxygen is is a main factor in creating energy in your body. So the idea is when you are at altitude, you will increase the amount of red blood cells in your body, which transports oxygen. So when you get down to sea level, um, you will have a slight advantage from that altitude. But an altitude camp has only like the amount of like for an amateur or a non-pro, an altitude camp wouldn't really be necessarily because the gains are so little for an amateur that you probably are better off just training normally. But for a pro athlete that has to save seconds or even less than a second, it could be the difference. But one of the issues, the hard parts of altitude training is that you can't do the same training at altitude as you do at sea level because it's so much harder. So when the triathletes go to the first altitude camps, they will start the first weeks with only easy training. And then the last weeks, they will start to push hard training because it's so much harder to train at altitude than at sea level. So that's the basic idea to just take more advantage of the oxygen you breathe in by creating more red blood cells.
And how long do the benefits last? Is it just like a week after, or is it like a lifetime?
Um, it's definitely not a lifetime. It's just some weeks after. So at winter time, you want to altitude camps because you have no races in the near future. But as the season begins, like most pro athletes will go on an altitude camp leading into the season. Um, for triathletes, seasons start in early March, I believe. So they will do an altitude camp leading into the start of the season, and they will probably do altitude in between races also. Um, and in the summer between the first half and the second half of the season. So they'll basically just do it before races because you'll only get the benefits a couple of weeks after the camp, and the benefits are best right after.
And when you say a season, does that mean that that's the time of year when you're doing a lot of triathlons? So basically, like how many triathlons can you compete in a season, for instance?
Um, for a short course racer, you can compete in quite a few. I believe I'm not quite sure how many because you have the main World Series, which is like the World Championship, where you have, I believe, like 10 maybe races in a year, where the guy who has the most points from every race wins the World Championship in triathlon. So that's like 10 World Series races, and then you probably do uh, European Championship or Olympic Championship or Olympic test event. So between 10 or 20 races, I believe, is normal in a season. It really depends. But for a long distance racer, such as Ironman, you won't do nearly as many because you require a lot more recovery in between each race. So I believe an Ironman racer would do 3 or 4 Ironman races and probably some shorter courses as well. So they will have very little race in a year.
And how long does it take to uh how long does it take to recover from a short course as you're doing and versus a like Ironman course?
Short course you can let's say the race is at the weekend.
Hmm.
Then you'll be probably be training the next day even just easy, and then have 2 3 days easy training, and then you're back to normal. But if you're doing an Ironman, you'll probably have uh, I don't know, a couple of days off completely, and then two up to 2 weeks, I guess, with easy training, and then you'll be back to normal.
So it's a big
And the thing
difference.
is, if you yeah, it's quite a big difference. So long distance triathletes won't do nearly as many races in a year as a short course, because uh, after a race you'll have to start building on your form again, because you are trying to in a season you are trying to build your shape with hard training and a little less volume, which means you are getting at the best shape you can to the event. And then after the event, you have done um, you've done not too much volume training, so your form and shape will lower again, and then you have to build that up again to the next race. And that cycle is a lot longer for long distance triathletes, and therefore they can't compete at as many races as short course. If you understood that,
Yeah, yeah.
like it's a cycle of training and getting in the best shape as possible to the race, and then and then your form and shape drops, and then you have to rebuild it.
Right. So after a race, you you're resting so much that your like form kind of deteriorates.
Yeah, because you have to do so many weeks with easy training,
Yeah, yeah.
so you lose a lot of fitness.
And because I mean, you said that as the older you get, the more long range you do, correct?
Yep.
Would you see? Would you then? Would it have been normal to see more slightly older people in Ironman than in your short course
Def-
Olympic?
yeah, definitely, definitely. If you look at the people competing in long course, you'll see the average age there is a lot higher than in short course. Like the youngest guys in short course would be 20 years old, and the typical age is probably between 20 and 30. And in long distance, most of the people are probably above 30. So it's quite significant, yeah.
And what you might have said this before, but what is the most popular? Like, where do you get the most money? Essentially.
The most popular is short course, and that is probably because of it is an Olympic sport, because there is no Olympic in Ironman, and it also has a lot of more publicity. It is covered by TV, so there's a lot more money in short course than long course. But they are working on long course,
And you also said
I
that
believe.
you also said that there are multiple races that are related, right? That you have to win, like you have to win the majority or
Yeah,
like
it's a
get the
series.
yeah. So it's basically like a league. It's not like a one-off thing.
Yeah, the world championship. Yeah, in short course.
But But do you also have like one-offs like I mean in football at least we have like we have the National League where you play like 30 games, 40 games a year, and then you have a cup like
Yeah.
win or lose. Is there a similar thing in triathlon?
Um, well, the World Championship, as I said, is a series, so that would probably be the closest to a league in football. Um, and the European Championship is a one race, so that would probably be closer to a cup in football. I think you have to qualify for that as well, uh, and that's just a one race. But in long race, the World Championship is a one race
But
only,
and
not a series.
you said you had to qualify. Is that through the league or is that like something else?
Well, obviously you can't. Um I'm not entirely sure how the qualification system works, um, but there definitely is a qualification system because not everyone can attend to a pro race, of course. In the European Championship, I know it's based on results, and you also have to be. I don't know how many, but it's probably like you can only have three from each nation, and you also have to do the um, like probably top 20 in a World Cup race or those types of qualifications.
So and when you win, what are you winning? Is there a trophy? Is there a medal? Is is there like prize
There
money?
is
Like a like a pony? Like what are you getting?
um, they're getting both a trophy and prize money, and of course a lot of publicity. And a very good example of that is in the last year in 2019 in the World Championship in half Ironman, which basically is an Ironman with half the distance. Um, and
Makes sense.
there are, yep, it's a fun distance because it's a mix of long course distances, people from Ironman, and a mix from short course. And Gustav Eden from Norway, which is a short course athlete, he won the world championship, which was quite cool because he's in the same triathlon club as me. Um, and he got, I believe he got $40,000 for winning. But I believe the most important thing was the fact that he got noticed all over the world, and he got a lot of sponsors because sponsors are very important in order to be a professional athlete. Because before he won the world championship title, he had to buy his bikes himself. But after the world championship title, he could get a sponsorship with a bike manufacturer. And because he was literally the world champion, he could like choose from every bike manufacturer he wanted. So then he gets free bikes from that bike manufacturer.
So
And as we
so
talked about earlier, bikes are expensive.
yeah, 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 quite expensive. So but what would the main income source be for a typical triathlete? Is that sponsorships? Is that prize money? And also, um, does second place also get prize money, or is it like a winner takes it all system?
No, no, no. There is a prize money for the podium, of course, and then I believe there's also prize money for people in top 10 or something like that. Um, but but the main income for a pro athlete would always, in most cases, I believe, would be sponsorship. In most 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 sports, because as I believe Lionel Messi, he earns, of course, a lot through playing at Barcelona,
Quite a lot,
but
yeah.
he yeah, but most of his money comes from sponsorships and those kind of things.
Yeah, but if
And
Messi was to lose every single one of his sponsorships, like he would be very well off, right? But
yeah, of course, he's very
would the
wealthy.
average triathlete be well off if the sponsor went away? Like,
Um, like the best pro athletes earns uh, very, very good off prize money. I believe in 2017, the Norwegian triathlete Christian Blumenfeld earned 1 million Norwegian kroners from prize money.
alone?
Uh, yep, which is quite good from just prize money.
Yeah, which is like
And then he
$100,000, right?
also, yep,
Yeah, okay.
and he also has sponsor for clothes, bikes, bike shoes, helmets, and everything. Uh, and so I would say they're not poor, but not football rich either.
Got you. And you said that you're in a club, correct?
Yep.
Do in football, I'm obviously from a football background, so that's like what I know the most about. And I know
Hmm.
you at least know the basics. So I'm trying to like understand that through football. So at least what I know that let's say Messi, he plays for Barcelona, correct? Right.
Hmm.
And that's who he's representing, unless it's international, where he's representing Argentina.
Yeah.
When the pros or even you are running, do you represent yourself, your club, your nation? Like what
Um,
badge do you have on your chest, if you know what I mean?
um, that's a good question. In World Series events, like the World Championship, you have you represent your country, but in Ironman World Championship and half Ironman World Championship, you represent your club. So most races, athletes will represent their country in short course, and in Ironman they will represent their club.
And do athletes get paid by their club at the same as in football, or is it nothing?
Um, well, not from the local club, um, but there are some triathlon teams that has like, for instance, one of the most famous probably, Bahrain 13, that has Christian Blumenfeld, Alistair Brownlee, and so on. And they get money for being in the team, but I don't believe they get money from their local team. The local team just isn't healthy enough, I believe, wealthy enough.
What do you mean the local team? Like you said they
Hmm?
representing like in Ironman they were representing a team, right?
Yeah.
And I I'm feeling I I think from what I understand you're differentiating between a local team and another team. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't fully understand what you mean. Like, do they have multiple teams?
Um, well, it's kind of yeah, they kind of have a local club from the place they're in. For instance, Gustav Iden is in Åsane Sykkelklubb.
Okay.
But I think that's the only club he is in. But let's take Christian Blumenfeld, for example. He is in Bahrain 13, which obviously isn't a team from Bergen or Norway. It's from Bahrain, uh, and that's a team that has gathered some of the best athletes around the world and basically paying them. So that's probably a bit like soccer. You play for a team and get paid by the team. But you like me or Gustav Eden, we are we are at our local team. We are not paid to be at our local team. We are at our local team because that's our local team, you know.
All right. Okay. So you might just train like on a daily basis, being in your local team, which you do not get paid for at all. And then when you're competing, you are competing for like this international team, for instance.
Yeah, but our it's a bit different for different nations. For instance, Norway, they have a very strong national team. So the best in Norway will train with the best in Norway here in Bergen. So all the best triathletes in Norway lives in Bergen and trains in a group. Um, and other pro triathletes around the world um, are training in groups there is a popular group that contains uh, I don't know how many, but some of the best, but they are not from the same nation, so they are training under the same coach and in a team. And it's not a club or a team. It's just they're just training under the same coach and together, and it's not depending on the nation.
And
So it's a bit different
you also
around the
said
world.
that you're in the same club as this famous person, correct?
Yeah, Gustav.
Yeah. Like, are there any requirements, or did you just just basically just state your name and you're in? like like
Yeah,
like
since
to
it's
me it doesn't
a
make a
local club.
sense at all. Like it doesn't make sense for I mean I the way I'm just analyzing, like from my point of view,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
sounds like you're in the same club as like Ronaldo or Messi, like, which does not make sense at all.
yeah. I know what you mean. Now since it's the local club, it's like free to join. Uh, Not free to join. You have to pay your fee, but it would actually be the most natural triathlon club to join based on my location as well. So it really just is the club for me though. So
Does Gustav have to pay?
and the reason I and the reason I'm in the club is to get people to train with, a group to train with, and of course a trainer.
And this coach, is he doing this full time, or is this like a in like a hobby of his? Do you know?
My trainer.
Yeah, for instance.
Um, yeah, my trainer is doing this part time. He is studying, um, but the trainers at the Olympic team, no, the national team, they are full time. So I believe there are four main trainers at the national team, and all of them are full time trainers.
And for the you also said that sometimes they are representing the national team, like a nation, correct?
Hmm.
Th- that would be something that was something they would do in the Olympics, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so is it just completely in? I mean, so in football, right? Um, I
Yeah.
know that from the national team, not always like there are always like some players are always in the team no matter what. They could have a really bad season and still get picked.
Yeah.
Is the national team different here? Does it all depend on that year's performance, or is it
Um,
or does it change? or does it not change for
In
me?
Nor in Nor in for the Norwegian triathlon team, they are categorized in different teams under that again. They have the Olympic team, the World Cup team, the Europe Cup team, and the junior team. And all of those different teams are on different levels. And in order to get into a team, you have to do certain qualifications, such as a specific swim time at 800 meters or a specific run time at 5K, um, as well as some race results to refer to. Um, so I don't think you can't do a bad season or get completely off because you every year you have to fulfill the requirements and criterias to get into the team. So you can get off to the team, get off the team if you are bad enough, and get back on if you meet the requirements.
Right. And how embedded are the athletes? Like, let's say that uh Gustav, right? He he's running. I mean, let's say that I have no clue if he's on the national team or not. But let's say that he's not, okay? And then he
Yeah.
runs he, and then let's say you are, right? Just to make it fun. If you if you
Yeah.
guys have the almost the exact same so let's say last year you're in the team, you're in the national team and he's not, right?
Hmm.
And then you both run the same race and get basically the same time.
Yeah.
Would they just automatically pick you again, or would they just like rethink the whole
If
thing? You know what I
um
mean?
they're if both meet the requirement, in theory, both should get on the team.
Yeah, but
Um,
isn't there a like isn't there a total
limited
amount of space?
space.
Yeah, limited space. Yeah.
I'm not sure how many that there can be on the team because it's not like football where you have plenty of people to take from. Because as I said earlier, triathlon is a very small sport in Norway, and the amount of people who are good enough to meet the requirements are there are not too many of them. So in order to get on the team, you first of all have to meet the requirements. And if, as you say, there are more people that meet the requirements and that are fighting for the places on the national team, I believe they would raise the bar or raise the qualifications or requirements to make it harder to get on the team. And in your case, where I'm on the team and you are not, and we're putting in the same results, I believe I would still get the slot or the place. But that is just purely hypothetical.
Right. Right. And do you get paid to be on the national team, or is it just for honor and glory? Do you know?
Kommer säga till.
Uh, uh, do you get paid for being on the national team, or is it
Um,
just like honor and glory?
you don't get paid for being on the national team, but you do get. It is very useful to be on a national team. First of all, you can train with a national team. You get the
Exposure.
because yeah, it's not too much exposure of being on a national team compared to winning big races. That's more important in terms of exposure.
Okay.
But you get the uh, people around you to support you. Like you get the in Norway we have Olympiatoppen,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically a center that is helping Olympic sports in Norway. So you get support from them, physios tra trainers and all of that to just help you develop to the best of your potential. So it's very beneficial to be on a national team
Right.
to help you develop and train.
So you get all this really important infrastructure around you, essentially.
Yes. And my main goal right now is to chase the qualifications for the national team.
The junior slot, or
Well, next year will be my last year as a junior, and now that we have had 2 or 3 months without swimming pool, I don't know if I'll meet the swim requirements, but I'll see what I can do. I'll
but
do whatever I can.
but then again, isn't just about everyone not swimming as well? Wouldn't everybody just be in this? Wouldn't it be just fair?
If
Eh, like, is anybody swimming right now? Isn't every pool closed basically?
no, no, but I'm I started swimming just over a year ago. So for people that already was on the national team level, they will still be on the national team level, but I'm not on the national team level, so I'll have to swim to try to get on the national team level.
All right. Okay.
And if I'm losing 8 or 9 weeks, it's just going to take 8 or 9 weeks more.
Right.
And
Right.
when I have one year left to try to get on the national team, 8 or 9 weeks are very important.
And so you're trying to get into the junior team, correct?
Yeah.
Uh,
So if I don't get in the junior team next year, I won't get on the junior team ever because then I will not be a junior anymore. So then the next national team I'll be trying to get to is the Euro Cup team, I believe.
and what age is he junior? Is that under 20 or
Yeah, so 19 and below.
right? And do you think? I mean, you're saying that you want to get into that team, right? Is it that much harder to get into the European Championship team, which you were just saying?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Uh, the junior team you're trying to get into right now. Is that easier
Yeah.
than getting into the other team that you were trying to get into, the European team, I think?
Mm, Um, well, the requirements are harder because obviously the older you get, the better you should be. Um, so it requires better times. Um, but I believe if I maintain good training over over a long time without interruptions from injury or sickdom, I believe I'll meet the requirements fairly soon and be able to join the national team. Whether it will be on the junior team or Europe Cup team, I don't know. But eventually I'll get there, I believe.
Right. So,
And on the junior team, there is also different age. Like if you're 17, you have to swim faster if you're 16, and if you're 18, you have to swim faster than if you're 17, and so on.
right. So it's fairly level, right?
Yeah. Mm.
And so where do you see yourself in, I don't know, 4 years?
Can you say it again? Sorry.
Where do you see yourself in 4 years?
En gang till så, det var hakigt lite.
Where do you see yourself in 4 years?
Um, that is a very good question. So in terms of like it's not given that I'll become a pro athlete, so I'll kind of have to have a plan B, which obviously will be studies and stuff.
Right.
Um, but in 4 years, I will have made that decision if I'm actually going to try to be a pro or if I'm going to study, because in 1 year I will be done at the school,
Okay.
and then I'll probably take 1 year free.
Uh-huh.
That's in 2 year time,
Like a gap year?
and in 2 years, yeah, and in 2 years, I believe I will have the experience and the knowledge if I want to continue to pursue the dream of triathlon or the other dreams I have in my life. If I have the motivation, if I have the potential, if I have the development that's required. Um, and in 4 years, I hope to see myself on the national team and training with the best and chasing chasing my dreams in triathlon.
And right before we finish this off, could you
Yep.
please could you please I mean you've only been doing this for 15 months, so it's not like you're a veteran, a seasoned veteran or anything. But
Nope.
what would be like tips, like the best advice you could give to somebody that's like, 5 years wanting to become a triathlete?
Um,
I mean, not exactly 5 years, but somebody younger than you that is trying to
mm,
become a triathlete.
so the first thing, and what I think is the most important, is to have fun with what you do and to love what you're doing, because that is the main reason why you do that, and it is actually required, or you do have to like what you're doing in order to be able to train as much as you do, uh, because if you do it for other things, it's just so much hard work, and you need the motivation. And I would recommend to join a local club, join a group, get a trainer, and so you get a nice group and have fun with your training. And you don't have to have the best equipment or the most expensive bike. Certainly not at a young age, because it doesn't matter at that age. The only thing that matters at that age is to love what you do and to keep on training. And when you get older, hopefully you'll make your dreams.
Hey, Eric, I just really want to thank you for being here for taking the time.
Thank you for it was a nice podcast. It's
Yeah,
nice talking.
yeah. I just have to like break it to you. It's probably only gonna get one view, which is my mom. But I'm grateful for you. I'm, I'm really grateful for you. Taking the time and everything. And I really hope to
Anytime,
see you.
anytime.
I really hope to see you doing well and become a pro and everything.
Thank you.
So that I,
I
I also hope that
I
when you get a pro, when you become pro, that that
yeah,
you'll
that's
come
one.
back and you know tell us a bit more.
Definitely. A pro athlete is always happy to talk about their sport, I
Yeah, and I also probably get more views.
believe. Probably.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, thanks for everything.
See you.